Good morning, folks. My name is David Brear, and welcome to episode 14 of Fintech Insider Breakfast Show, a show from the folks from 11FS, bringing you the breaking news from around the fintech and banking landscape every morning at 8:30 UK. Like Simon Van Scalina pointed out to me yesterday that it wasn't GMT, so I've been lying to everybody for about 4 weeks. So my bad, and thanks for correcting me on the internet, Simon. I do appreciate that one. We're going to be cooped up together for the next couple of months, so we thought we would try and give you guys something to start your day off just a little bit brighter. The show's a mix of the 11FS family as well as friends of 11FS from around the globe, and today I have one of each. I mean, I feel like we've got a bit greedy. We're like, oh, this is working with 2 people. Let's try it with 3 and see what happens, really put the internet under strain. So joining me is Mike Kelly, who is the Curl CEO. And as well as that, as Mike, we have 11FS Deputy CEO and co-founder of 11FS, Mr. Jason Bates. How's it going, guys?
Good, very good. Happy to be here.
Me too.
How's it going, Jason? You well? I mean, we were having some slight technical difficulties before this, just making sure all of our heads were the same size so we didn't look weird. But I think this is working.
Mine's still smaller. Look, that producer needs to sort this out. Look,
your lighting is better though, so.
That's true.
It is. We've got loads and loads of people jumping on this morning again. So morning, everybody who's joining us live. Thank you very much. If you can, I mean, let us know where you're joining in from. We've been having people from all around the globe jump on this morning and every other morning, which has been pretty damn awesome. So thank you, everybody, for jumping in. Already having comments that we look like we're sponsored by Apple, given the amount of AirPods that are on show this morning, but it just shows how good quality they are. So let's maybe not talk about their share price too much right now, but everything else is very, very good. So this morning, what we're going to be talking about is really about how fintechs are kind of helping people, because it kind of feels like actually we've always known there's been a pretty good community within the fintech sphere, but it feels like actually this has been an amazing opportunity to really sort of prove it. But maybe before we get into that, then I mean, how are you guys sort of coping with everything that's going on? I know, Jason, I mean, I talk to you every single day of my life, but Mike, how's life in lockdown?
Yeah, life in lockdown is unusual. I mean, the company has been remote for nearly 12 months now. So from a kind of operational point of view, it's okay. But yeah, it's strange times, especially for us, because in my day job at Curl, we did a lot with local, physical business like coffee shops and takeaways. And obviously a lot of their physical businesses shut down, if not all of it. So that's having an impact. Obviously, discussions with investors and partners as well start to break down a little bit. There's only so much of that stuff you can do over video calls. But no, I mean, for people in tech, I think we have the least of everyone's worries, really. I'm concerned more for 0 hours workers and people who need to be physically at work. I mean, I think that's a real problem.
Yeah, it is. It is an amazing sort of sweep of impact there, isn't it? Like you say, it could not be more sort of detrimental than people literally not being able to go out of their houses for sort of frontline on services capability. I mean, despite a lot of people trying to stay open for as long as they could, didn't they? I think it was it the guy who ran Weatherspoons who was basically just carry on, like pubs will be fine, just everybody get together. But I think it was it this morning? Was it British Airways have laid off? Was it 30,000 people to do with this as well? I think they furloughed them rather than actually sort of laying them off, which is good. So they're still going to be getting paid. But as you say, it's sort of total devastation of frontline staff, isn't it?
Yeah, the furloughing. Sorry, Jason, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's just such an unusual economic shock. We're used to the demand side sort of shock and recession where people just stop spending money, but this is the sort of supply side where we just can't deliver, and everyone there's an enforced supply side shock. So people can't leave their house, they can't spend their money. In fact, for a small group of people, they're actually going to be accumulating funds at the moment because they're not going to be going out to the restaurants, to the cinema, to the whatever.
I mean, for me, actually, I'm probably saving about £1,500 a month on not traveling from Norwich to London, which So I mean, there is an insane economic impact for organizations, isn't there? I mean, there's actually a really big environmental one to a certain degree as well, isn't there? Which is actually probably the only positive we can try and draw out of this situation, which is without all of those cars, without all of that industry kicking out all of the the CO2 that it does sort of day in, day out, then that might be the very bizarre silver lining type thing. So, but I'm not quite at growing carrots in my garden and singing Kumbaya just yet. So, which is, lots and lots of people joining us from all over the planet right now. So, morning, Larry over in Ireland, Raoul over in India. We've got some people, Eileen up in Scotland. We've got people over, Josie over in Malta. Basur over in Beijing, Brian Edwards Pritchard joining us all the way from Sydney this morning. Like this is getting serious now, guys. So we need to maybe bring the smarts at this point. So at that point, I'll hand over to you guys because that's definitely not my yeah. Don't leave me now, Mike. Don't leave me now. Morning, Chris Skinner over in Poland, and Sharon O'Dea joining us again from Amsterdam. So, all right, guys, let's get into this then. So, I mean, the community has really sort of responded very, very positively. I mean, Jason, I think you sort of possibly sort of kicked off the first domino on this particular one in terms of a tweet that you kicked out. When was it? Like last week? Was it last week or the week before? Like time is having very little meaning to me. But do you want to sort of bring us up to speed with a little bit about what it was that you were looking to achieve? And then, Mike, you tell us what happened since then, because it's sort of exploded in terms of action.
Sure. I mean, we're not the first domino by a long way. You had Simon and the COVID credit guys and Get Fronted. You've had a wide variety of people look at problems out there and how they can be solved. And at its best, I think that is startup culture. You look out there for unresolved, unsolved problems that technology can deliver a solution against, and combine that with actually a lot of people who work in tech are younger and more idealistic and really do want to make an impact in life. That's why they're working in some tech startup somewhere rather than, for a big consultancy or investment bank or something or other. So that combination of finding and seeing problems, thinking about actually what was the best way of solving that using some technology, making a low cost solution, how would that really work? And then how do we build it? So I think, having thought about what was happening locally. I mean, I live in a small town in the middle of England, and I was talking to a local cafe owner who had just brought around some food, and we'd ordered lunch from her, not because we didn't have enough food, but just felt really sorry for her. She's got this thriving business. It's an amazing sort of local hub for a lot of the mums in Oakham, which is where I live. And she was struggling, like on the verge of tears, because essentially her entire business has collapsed. Things were just going so well and then standstill. So, so she'd started to offer takeaways, but she's not set up to be an internet business, to be a web business, to be an at-distance business. And combined with I got a personal trainer, started with recently, and he again, amazing guy, trains boxers, does all kinds of good stuff. But he has this little gym in Melton Mowbray. He's just not set up for this. And suddenly, and he'd taken on an additional property he just got into a contract for a new place to build a new gym, and suddenly no clients. So he thought, well, I'll tell you what, I'll go around to their place and I'll stay at a distance and we'll do outdoor workouts. Of course, now that's out of the window. So what does he do? What does she do? And multiply that by millions of businesses, and you've got a real problem. I think that, combined with the fact that JP Morgan had put a paper out talking about the amount of cash that small businesses actually have as cash flow. One of our research team posted it in Slack, and it was like, it's something like 21 days or something of cash. And for restaurants and cafes, it was even less. So that really sort of set off that idea of like, why now? Well, because potentially 1 million plus businesses will be out of business in 3 weeks, and what can be done for them? And so that was the point of thinking, well, like if I was in their position, or if you put yourself in that position, what is the answer? And you need cash now. You've got loyal customers. You've got no cash flow. What can you sell? Well, You can sell the promise of services that will come. If people are really loyal to you, and I did this myself. I booked some lunches at the restaurant. I paid my personal trainer in advance because I want those people to stay in business. So can we scale that? Like, it's just not going to work if it just needs people handing over cash, or because that's not going to work and they can't take payments another way. Like, how do you scale it? How does it make it happen? And really that led to a tweet to say, really what we need is a very simple, free, like fast to set up voucher platform. Because ultimately, if you can enable people to very quickly take payment for and issue vouchers for some services in the future, and if you assume that there's some risk there, then maybe they give more in the future than the money they get now. Then for the businesses that can really take that up and start pushing it, it's actually a cushion. I can start to erode my profits a bit in the future, but maybe that'll keep me alive and keep the business going for the moment while I'm waiting for my government loans and everything else to come through. So it really did start as a tweet, as a what do people think? And I think Mike was one of the first people to get in touch.
And in terms of the, I guess those businesses, I mean, like say you've got, I mean, Jason, as you always do, talking to customers first. But is this something that those people would take up, right? Because it's essentially being able to put a prepay down payment on a service that you're going to need at the other end of this. And actually, like you say, supporting local businesses because you want them to be, and not just you. I mean, as a use case. I'm not just this is not the Isn't Jason Bates so good show. This allows everybody to.
When's that show? Can I join that one?
I think it's Friday. We'll come back on
every day is that day, Jason.
But being able to support local businesses and maintain them through this tough period in exchange for a discount on the service at the other end of where the light at the end of the tunnel is. I mean, how did those companies react to it when you spoke to them?
So I haven't pitched this to them, but the only reason that I thought that this was viable and a thing to tweet is that I'm seeing it happen already. Like, and I must say, like this, someone on Twitter was like, "Oh, it's all right talking about prepaying money you might lose. What about all of those millions of people who are out of work and work in travel and the airline industry?" And I should say this is a solution to help businesses, but I don't think it erodes my empathy for people who are personally who do not have money to buy advanced services from those businesses.
Yeah.
So I think that we should say that first, that this isn't for everyone to go out and prepay their services. There are millions of people who are in trouble and millions more across the world who are going to be even in worse trouble. However, there is the best solutions are those which are being hacked together by people already, and you're just going to make to reduce the friction and scale up the ease, because there will be a few entrepreneurial companies that are already doing this, that are out, I don't know, home printing vouchers and posting them through the letterbox of, I don't know, of people's houses, or doing something in order to make this happen. And this is just for everyone else. It's a catalyst rather than inventing something, because it's already happening.
I mean, it feels like it gives people a really good shield to sort of weather the storm, doesn't it? Honestly, the amount of comments that we're getting is just insane. So, hey to a bunch of people. Nick Ogden just joined us, father of e-commerce, which is good. So, Chris has been dropping some questions on there. It's like, why haven't banks done this type of thing? Because Jay, it's probably a good question. Is like, why haven't banks sort of stepped into this side? Because it feels like actually an opportunity to for them to offer. I mean, somebody's just called it bridge cash, but it's that sort of bridging to weather a pandemic, right?
I want to cut over to Mike, because he's been talking to people like across the world. There are companies that are doing this because it is the right kind of solution. So I think you've got Square in the US, you've got a group in Israel. Ryan Edwards Pritchard is talking about doing it in Australia with a group there. So it's a case of all of us, and in fact, he joined the Slack for Save My Local, the thing we've been doing last night, because now it's a point where everyone go, "Oh, what are you doing? How does it work? T's and C's and legal stuff. Like, who's looked at that? How are you going about it?" So I would argue for big companies with scale, for companies like Square, it's right in that space. I think banks have other things to think about. They've got staff off, they've got people who have loans, they've got people trying to access their money, they've got all kinds of stuff on at the moment to create these solutions. But having said that, some of the people who have joined the project are from big banks and from the innovation teams of big banks, and offering sort of internal resources to get it moving faster, but understand that they want to impact. But also, if they went through internal governance to do all of this thing, all of the businesses would be out of business by the time a big bank would have the legal cover in order to do it. But I'm going to cut over to Mike.
Yeah,
I mean, it sounds
like
Mike, the government are going to step in. That's where I see. So in Israel, for example, they're doing something very similar to what we're doing, and the government has some kind of insurance scheme where consumers, when they buy the vouchers, have a level of protection that's provided by the government as effectively a guarantor. And so we're really interested in pursuing that model, either through the traditional finance industry or directly with the government, and having a similar scheme in the UK, because I think that is going to be an issue. Obviously, businesses are in pretty dire situation. So one of our jobs is to figure out how we can kind of protect consumers if they're purchasing these vouchers in the event that the business unfortunately does end up defaulting.
And so, Mike, what happened since that tweet then? Because obviously, I mean, Jason chucked out something on Twitter, but you've made this thing a thing, right? So what happened?
So I'm quite good at making things. I've been doing it for a while, and when Jason tweeted it, so we'd actually been discussing it internally in the company, and the reason is because this is actually similar to a bunch of features that we've been building recently for coffee shops. So what's happening with a lot of local businesses before the COVID event happened, there's a lot of businesses who are looking to turn their regular customers into sort of monthly recurring revenue. So subscribers who would pay for coffees up front every month, for example. And so we were actually building these features already. And when the COVID event happened, we were thinking about how we could kind of extract this feature out, but we weren't really sure whether we wanted to do it because we didn't want it to seem opportunist. We wanted to seem like a kind of separate thing from the curl stuff. But it just didn't seem right, like there was a way for us to do it easily. And then when Jason mentioned that he'd had this idea, it was very in line with what we've been discussing. So I just said, look, we've already kind of started the work on sort of wireframing and thinking about this idea. It's really not going to take long for us to execute on it. And I don't get to code that much anymore as the CEO, so it was a good excuse for me to get my text editor out and start building some stuff. So so we just jumped on it, and on Friday we put out effectively kind of a call to arms amongst the tech community. So Jason put together a really great Google Doc, which just basically summarized the mission. We sent it out across social media. A whole bunch of people reacted really positively, emailed me in. We set up a Slack channel. It filled full of people. There's about 40, 50 people now in about 4 or 5 different time zones. And we've just had just incredible people just contribute, 12 hours at a time on designs and building front end stuff. We've had people work on the legals, on the terms of service and the privacy policy. We've just had an enormous number of people committing huge amounts of time, and it's allowed us to go from, on Friday when we put the call to action or call to arms out, to yesterday when we shipped V1. So if you go to savemylocal.org, you can see the V1 of the website. We've got the V1 of the order processing thing, so businesses now can sign up. We can set them up with an account and they can start processing orders already. So to go from 0 to where we are now in that short space of time is just amazing. And it's made possible partly by the kind of collaboration tech that's available now with Slack and Google Hangouts and all these things, but also just the generosity of time from the tech community. It's absolutely amazing.
Well, that's great. It's great to see, like, say, people from different companies all sort of come together. But a question in the comments here from Rita Martins. So how do you scale this? What do you need still? Is there anything, we've got the great and the good watching this right now. What do you need? What more can people do to help?
The key thing for us is, I'm trying not to use startup words because it's not a startup, but it's really distribution. So that's ultimately how do we make businesses aware that this is available to them? Because I think there's a lot of small business owners who are really quite frozen right now in terms of thinking about what to do. So they've been told that there's potentially government relief schemes that might generate them some capital, but that's going to take, in most cases, it's going to take at least 2.5 months. They have a window where they're about to run out of cash and they need to figure out what to do. So, excuse me, what our biggest job is to really get this in front of as many businesses as possible. And that's potentially where, businesses that have a lot of SMEs on their books potentially could become a kind of a channel for us to promote through. Now, I know a lot of larger banks would probably struggle to mobilize as quickly as we'd need them to, but ultimately they do have those relationships with those small businesses. So if there are any people from banks listening to this and they think there's a possibility that they might be able to work with us on putting this in front of their small business customers as quickly as possible, as in within the next week or so, then we'd love to chat with you. You can email me, mike@curl.app or support@savemylocal.org, and we'd love to chat with people like that.
Very good.
I mean, I should say that that it's a very early version. We've very much felt the time pressure of it having to be ready very quickly. So, I think we took some early decisions as to how do we make this as simple as possible a solution to start going, to start. So, it's almost version 0.1. I mean, there are lots of things that you would want and expect. I was talking to Ryan Edwards-Pritchard last night, and he was like, "Oh, and are you doing QR codes? And are you doing automatic redemption or partial redemptions?" It's like, whoa, guy. It's version 0.1. What do we really have to do? We have to enable people to make a vouchers, and at the moment that's a manual process. And then once a business has a landing page, then actually they're going to need some support in digital marketing. To a certain extent, a lot of these businesses have no experience of doing that. So how do they know their customers? What do they need? So there's a little bit of concierging there as to making that work. Then once they've got those things set up, how do they take payments? And I know Mike was doing Stripe integration last night, but we started off with, well, look, if they can find a way of taking the payments, we'll allow them to then offer the vouchers. So actually taking the payments out then simplifies it all the way down. And then once they've got the voucher and we can give them a report as to how many they've sold, then there's no big management platform for it at the moment. But all of those things, the payments, the management platform, redemption, QR codes, integrated payments, all of those things can be built as we go, just as as we do for clients at 11FS. Like, we start with that minimum lovable product, the thing that will is a little bit sort of has some edges, but will solve the problem for the end client. And then as we're bringing alpha clients on, of which luckily we've got a fair few people in the UK at the moment who are connecting us, then as those clients come on and start to use the platform will also evolve and hopefully then bring more talent in order to grow that up. And I guess we should say as well, it's a not for profit. There's no profit sort of motive behind it. And I think it's a good example of see that problem, start with a very, very minimal solution, bring alpha customers on, build the additional features as you go, but understand just as a startup has a finite runway, our finite runway is that businesses are going out of business every day. So the alpha has to get out in order to start addressing those problems and probably scale faster than it should in non-wartime, because people need that work.
Yeah, I mean, necessity sort of creates this, doesn't it? I mean, some great offers for help in the comments here, guys. So Basir saying great job, Malcolm saying brilliant idea, Mike, kudos for this. Nick Ogden, who's put his hat in the ring here to help, so saying I can help with distribution. So Nick, drop me an email off the back of this and I'll connect you into Mike and the team. So I mean, great thing that's happening. I mean, do you think SMEs are technologically savvy enough to be able to sort of tie into this? Because I guess it's to your point, it's getting the awareness with those guys. So maybe I guess there's a few good suggestions here around from Alberta, maybe partnering up with something like Nextdoor for distribution, or Benjamin Enser, who, if you saw the announcement this week, runs the 11FS research practice, saying actually like somebody like Xero or QuickBooks maybe even Shopify would be good sort of partners for these things. So maybe I'll try and reach out to Gary Turner at Xero and see if we can get him involved in
Xero. Xero is a great suggestion, actually. That's a really good suggestion.
But it's great. I mean, it shows what can happen, right? When people really are focused and come together to solve a real problem, right?
Yeah, I think absolutely. It touches on a couple of things, like inevitably with startups and these kinds of things, it's not the tech that is the be all and end all. Like the terms and conditions, the privacy, actually materials for end customers, like all of the stuff we've seen going on around homeschooling, people sending lists of materials around as to how it can help. Actually, a lot of the work around this needs to be actually, people could be issuing vouchers by email at the moment if they're just notes that they wrote down. They need to understand that they can do that, what the legal stuff around it might be, and also how to reach out for people. So there is something to be said for, like, actually, if anyone has experience in digital marketing, like reaching out to local businesses and starting to help them think this through. It's just as we see day to day. It's not the tech is an important part, but it's not necessary and sufficient. And I think so with the Shopify and the other platforms, then if everyone could set up a Shopify shop and start selling, goods on there, then that would be amazing as well. To a certain extent, there's a lot of sort of education around this that actually local businesses could really do with.
Agree.
Yeah, and
all right.
you've got
another offer here from the mayor's office as well, saying so Deval over at London Partners saying we should get this on the radar for the mayor's office. London Fintechs helping small businesses tangibly. So Deval, drop me an email. I'll connect you into Mike, and let's see what we can do to accelerate this. Another suggestion is let's try and get this in front of Martin Lewis, because that guy's got a megaphone like nobody else. So I'll see what I can do on that side of things as well. But Mike, I mean, where can people find out more about this? It sounds like everybody's super interested to know how they can help, and also super interested to keep in touch with it as it progresses to succeed.
So if you go to savemylocal.org, it's all a work in progress, but you can go to the landing page there. If you send any local businesses that you want to support, you can send them to the landing page. If they don't want to go to the landing page, they can just send an email to support@savemylocal.org. And if anybody wants to get in contact with me directly to talk about any potential distribution stuff, mike@curl.app.
Very, very cool. I mean, it's a great cause. So please do everybody help with this. I mean, the more businesses that survive this, the better the economy is going to be, and that will be a great thing for everybody. So, all right, guys, we're at the top of the hour, so we're probably going to have to wrap up right now. But Mike, where can people find out more about you personally?
So if you search me on Twitter, it's Mike Kelly 85. If you use LinkedIn, just search Mike Kelly Curl and I'll pop up. And I shared my email anyway, so yeah.
Well, I think at that point, if you can't remember Mike's, just hit me. Jay, where can people find out more about you on online?
Well, you can obviously find me at 11FS, my day job, and find me on Twitter at Jason Bates.
Very good. All right, guys, that's all we have for you today. Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, and we will see you tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.